Have you ever wondered what it takes to create a craft beer business from scratch? Well, join me in this vlog series as I show you how to bring passions to reality. Hey everyone, I'm Jamie and I'm the founder of JKB Brewing and I'm also the Chief Everything Officer, as yes, I am a one-man band, so I am responsible for everything here. I am trying to go from backyard home brewer to business entrepreneur, and I am going to share my journey with you to give you an exclusive behind the scenes look at what it does take. So to give you context on the business I'm trying to build, let me just go through the typical supply chain that is in the craft beer industry as I see it. So start off with farmer. They farm the grains, farm the hops, package them up, get them to the brewery, right? Then your favorite craft brewery then takes those ingredients, makes some beer out of them, sticks them in a mash, boil it, ferment it, and then they package that beer up once it's ready, the cans, bottles, kegs, so forth. And then once that beer has been packaged and is ready to sell, it is then usually stored somewhere, right? Because unless, you have hundreds and thousands of bottles and cans and kegs all being immediately sold and consumed once it is ready, that does need to be stored somewhere. So a lot of breweries will just store on site. They have, particularly the larger microbreweries and obviously the mass market breweries will probably store all their beer on site, or at least have some storage, and then that will then need to get distributed somehow to customers. So a lot of craft breweries sell their beer on site. So if you go into their tap room, the beer is right there on tap, but that also gets distributed to, say, other pubs and bars, the kegs anyway, and even bottles and cans can get distributed there, or to, alcohol or retailers or bottle shops where those beers are also sold, or either directly via online sales. So a lot of craft breweries will sell their beers online, and then when you buy them, they get shipped to you. And in my experience with buying craft beers online from craft breweries, they often handle that themselves, either through their own delivery van, or sometimes they do just send it through the mail as well. And then once that beer does get in your hands, it goes into your fridge, and then from your fridge, it goes into your hands again, because now you want to actually open it and drink it, and then it goes into your mouth where you do drink it. So how am I trying to fit in with all that? And where am I trying to take my business? So I don't have the money to buy my own premises and buy my own equipment and all that is needed to start making my own craft beer on site and selling that. So I am trying to set up a nomad brewing business. So with this nomad brewing model that I'm going for, I don't have any of that. All I have is this computer behind me and some home brewing equipment at home to test and develop my recipes on. So essentially, I am looking to outsource all of that supply chain is going to be outsourced. So I need to find partners where I can either rent their brewing space, or they can produce the beer for me under contract, which basically means I give them a recipe, I tell them how I want the beer made, I work with them on that so that it fits their brewing equipment, I presume. This is my first time getting into it, so I'm sure there's going to be a few things I'll find out, but that's how I understand it. Give them the recipe, they'll brew it for me, they will package it for me, I supply them with designs. Some places may need to supply packaging, some places can supply the packaging or source the packaging for me, so that's potentially other areas I'll need to look into, sourcing some of those things, and then depending on who I partner with, they could help me with the logistics side by potentially renting out some of their space, or I will need to find a third-party logistics company who can handle all the storage and the actual transport of goods for me as well. So what was the first step that I actually took? Well, the first step was actually the beer recipe. Now, I don't know whether this is how most people start out or not, but for me, I had a recipe and I thought that would make a good beer. So this was something that I brewed before I even had desires to make my own company, my own business. So this recipe I have, it is a niche beer. It's not a beer that I would say is particularly popular, particularly here in Australia, but that's okay. Not everything needs to be. I think that will suit what I'm trying to go for more. So the way I see it, there's sort of two thoughts. You can either go where the competition is, and obviously more competition means it is harder to stand out and there's more people to compete against. But where there is more competition, there is generally more money. And the other way to go is more a specific niche. And where you do go into those areas where there are specific niches, there's not as much competition. So it is theoretically easier to stand out because there's less people to stand out against, but there's also less people looking there and shopping there and putting their money there. So there is that challenge of trying to then get people to come into that niche and buy what you're selling. So I have decided to go the latter. So the reason I've decided to go more down that niche path is I believe it's truer to who I am and the beers that I like to brew and tend to brew. And I think that will mean that I will create better beers in the end. And those smaller batch unique beers are the beers that I tend to seek out when I'm searching for beer. And I believe in that field is where you can do something a little bit more special. You can experiment more. That's the way I like to experience my beer. And I think I can do some cool and unique things in there and hopefully bring something to you that maybe you've never thought of before or give you a unique take on something. That area of the market is where I'm a customer. I'm also hoping that will allow me to understand my customer base a little bit better than if I was to go for the more stock standard, maybe not stock standard, but down that path that everyone else is going. Okay, so once I had the recipe, I actually had to start a company, right? I had to actually make that decision that yes, I want to give this a go. It's something I'm passionate about. I believe, at least at home anyway, that I do make good beer. So I thought, why not? Why not give it a go? So to actually create the business and the company itself, there are a few things that I did have to go through. So I had to actually register the business, so get a company registered. Then I had to register a business or trading name. So that is the name that you'll see on like the website and social media and all that. So it is not the legal entity name, but is a name that I trade under. So once that was done, I had to do stuff like creating business emails, creating bank accounts, creating social media accounts, creating and buying a domain name or internet domain name, then also creating a temporary website as well, just to have some internet presence. But if you look at it at this time, it is very, very temporary and offers basically no value. So don't be too harsh on it. Also had a logo created as well by a logo designer. I did have a go at it, but I think my attempts were a lot more trash than the logo that the designer has come up with. I've also done a bit of business planning as well. So just, like where do I want the business to go? Some of the financial stuff, like, how much money you put in, how much money do you get out under different scenarios, just to kind of, so you know what you're in for. I think it's an important step. And also it gives you the chance to write down on a piece of paper where you think you can go, what you want to do, so that when you do get stuck, or when I get stuck, hopefully I have something I can refer back to, at least give me some direction on what to do if I'm completely stuck and have no idea what I'm doing, which will probably be a lot of the time. And of course, I have done some planning on regular content to deliver on social media to help promote the business, build some brand awareness, and also hopefully give you guys something of value that you can take away. So the things that I'm currently working on while trying to build this business is refining some of the wording around the branding and identity of the business. So if you do happen to look right now across some of our social media platforms, the wording might be a bit different. So I want to just make that consistent to obviously look more professional, but also help with myself so that I actually have what I want to say up in here is properly articulated in the best way possible so that you guys can understand what JKB Brewing is all about. And excitingly, I have also started some talks with a local craft brewery to have some beer made under contract for me. This will just be a small pilot or test batch that we're talking about. So I've initiated that as well, which is pretty exciting because that, at the end of the day, is the whole reason I started this business, is to get some beer made. So with the upcoming plans and the next steps of actually getting this business established would be to finalize those talks with that brewery to get an understanding of obviously pricing, how much it's going to cost, but then also when they can do it, the logistics around it, whether they can store it for me, whether I need to go find other logistics companies to help with that. So this small pilot batch would only be about 10 kegs worth. So it's not a lot, but also thinking more ahead of that in the future, once this pilot batch is done and I figured out how to sell these 10 kegs to somewhere that actually wants to buy them off me and sell them themselves, then have to take that learning and then upscale to another batch that would be big enough to actually be a full packaged volume batch. So actually put in cans and bottles, and then I'd have to figure out how to sell all that. And then hopefully I can talk with the brewery as well about the logistics of that and whether they have any space or any of their distribution network that they use I could potentially rent out or tap into. And of course with that comes packaging design as well. So I'd need to get some labels and case packaging all developed as well. And then of course with that, as I mentioned before, have to figure out how to sell, then also have to figure out how to market as well, which I'm doing some of my own upskilling into. So there's a lot of things when you start a business that you do need to learn and upskill into, but you just got to take it day by day and see what you can learn and try and implement it. So I do need to learn a bit more about that, and just showcasing why our beers will be so good that you would be completely mad to not buy it. And then of course, importantly, I do need to focus on creating some high value content as well, so that you guys who do follow along and who do hopefully end up being customers can actually come away with something as well. Having learned something entertaining, maybe something you hadn't have thought about before, because it will, and from a personal point of view, so that will help me get people to follow and become customers, but then also stay on board, stay engaged, keep following along, and then hopefully come back and buy products again. And then of course there are all the business essentials that need to go along with that. So stuff like insurance, I need to finalize that as well. So trademarking, looking into whether I want to do that, with business logos and all that, and the process for doing that, and all the other legal stuff that comes with it, like sales terms and conditions. What I've been told is that some businesses like to have lines of credit when you sell your product to them as well. So looking into all that sort of stuff, all that legal, easier for my business to interact with other businesses as well. And then of course get some merchandise created so that I can wear in these videos and other YouTube videos and social media posts. So at least there's some consistency across my videos. As you'll see, my first couple of YouTube videos, I'm just sort of wearing random beer t-shirts or whatever, and I've got some random bar runners across the bar. I mean, I think they're really good. There's one particular really good one on there, which I'm sure there's absolutely no way you could possibly disagree with. But yeah, so just looking at stuff like that, and hopefully down the track, when there's a bit of a following and a bit of an audience, maybe people will want to buy that as well. So the immediate goal with this business is just to get, small batches of beer created regularly enough, sort to a scale where it is almost like a side income or supplemental income to my day job. But even if it does get to like a side, supplementary income to my regular day job, I think that would even be a success. Just to have beer regularly produced and sold would be a great achievement, I think.